evening, everyone. Hello, hello. This is Auntie Kim, and I am joined here with my co-host Jamal. What's up, nephew?
What's going on? How you doing, Auntie?
I'm good. How you doing? You
I'm
good?
making it. I'm
Okay.
making it. Absolutely.
Have you had one of those weeks?
Absolutely. Have
Okay. You've
one of
had one of
those.
those weeks. Okay.
Mm,
Well,
mm,
listen. Let's do a little
good way of saying
housekeeping.
it.
I understand. Let's do a little housekeeping. Hello. We are glad that you guys are with us. We see two people so far. Let's do a little housekeeping. And Jamal, you gonna start being able to play my theme song with Willie Hutch? We got to get our theme song. So listen, if you were to hear, I'm gonna bob anyway. If you were to hear any music in the, what my love power, talking about that love. Okay. You scratching your head, and we haven't even got started. Oh
Congratulations.
my
You played
goodness,
yourself.
love. Okay, so listen. If you were to hear any music in the background, we do not own the rights to that music, and we'll get there. My theme song that we wanted for our podcast is by
She
Willie Hutch.
wanted,
I wanted for the podcast is Willie
not
Hutch Love
me.
Power, going back to 1970 something. Y'all know I'm a little bit older, but anywho, if you were to hear it in the background, and we're gonna get
Talking
there,
about
then we do
some
not
we.
own we do not own the rights to that music. Y'all know we in two different generations. Secondly, any views expressed during our podcast by either Jamal or I, are those views are our own. You're free to chime in, but don't come for us because, as I tell you every week, your feelings are going to be hurt. It's our podcast and our views, and so we're going to go from there. Listen, continue to go out and subscribe to our YouTube page. So far, this is our eighth podcast, I believe, nephew. Correct? Number eight.
Yes.
I think it's number eight, and yeah, you was gonna keep me on track. It's number eight. We've had 33 subscribers so far. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we thank you so much for your support. You know, we also
Appreciate
have a
everybody.
YouTube, we also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and we thank you for your continued support on all three of those platforms. Continue to support us. We have a goal that we would like to reach so that we can go a little higher and do a few extra things. But again, we appreciate your support. Catch us at our email at gmail20, get the belt 23 at gmail.com. If you would like to get in touch with us or share some comments or have some topics that you would like for us to discuss. And as always, if you want to send me a belt, you can do so at P.O. Box 490, Powder Springs, Georgia 30127. Okay? And so, again, we appreciate you being here. We know that you could be doing other things on a Saturday night. And so we appreciate the support. For those of you who we can see and those of you who will join us in the background, much love to you as we continue this journey.
Appreciate y'all.
Absolutely. So, nephew, I sent you this. As you know, I'm not a big sports person, but last week, and I sent you this little blurb. Coco, who's won the championship,
In
had a
what?
bid in tennis. I'm sorry, thank you. In tennis, thank you. It's because there's a lot of things going on in tennis. Thank you for checking me on that. She had to on the court last week sort of stand up and defend herself against her opponent, Lori something. I'll get the name correct, and with her ref. So in the midst of this match, and I've watched some of it, Coco was playing, and she had to call out or bring to the attention of the referee some of the things that her opponent was doing on the court, such as how slow she was playing, different things that she was doing on the sidelines, such as sitting down that are not allowed. And even in the blurb that I watched, as they're setting up for their match and they're setting out their towels and their rackets on a particular end of the court, Her opponent skipped to her corner, placed a towel on one end of the court, kind of skipped and lollygagged to the other end of the court, and just was going real slow. And the referee was calling some of the shots out real after the fact. And so Coco got a little fed up and she went to the ref and brought those issues in favor of Coco and defending herself, who did so in a very elegant way. In doing so, I think Coco's all of 19, 20 years old. The referee responded that Coco is such a fast and powerful player that maybe that wasn't uh, in defense to her slow opponent who was not playing as well and not playing up to the rules, that if she were to slow down herself, that maybe it would not, it wasn't a matter of not being fair. The crowd did not go for this and fully supported Coco in and how she defended herself and what was going on during the match. So after the match, which Coco did win, her opponent got on her press conference in tears, talking about how poorly she felt the crowd had treated her. Um, and she was just trying to play her game, and she doesn't think it was fair, and just in tears. And many people called her out on, and again, this is one of these things. And I watched another interview with someone else and said that it goes back to uh, white privilege. She was not playing by the rules for those who watched the match and know the rules of the game. She was playing very poorly. Her sportsmanship was not necessarily up to par, and I don't think that she thought she would be called out on it. And so that's what took place. So just another case of even in it just seems in all arenas there are people who feel that the rules don't necessarily apply to them and they don't have to live by them. And what I think happened in this case is that she thought she would not be called out and that Coco would not speak up for herself. And she did. And when she was supported by the crowd, the audience that was out there, she went on, as Jamal told me to make sure, she went on to win the Open, and she's continuing to play. But just for me, just things that we have to continue to I don't want to say put up with, but have to witness. Just that's just unfair, and it was unfortunate that in the midst of this match, she had to actually stop and speak to the referee about the calls that were being made and how the match was going and how the rules were not being followed. And many people say that had the case been reversed, certainly her opponent would have spoke up on those very issues. I know, Jamal, you shared with me that you didn't watch it and not very much up on it, but what was so interesting and what came to my attention as it came through social media was, first of all, the her opponent's interview, where she was in tears and distraught, like she felt she had not done anything wrong, and could not believe that the crowd nor Coco had said anything to her, and it just the backlash from that. But hats off to Coco for speaking up for herself, playing brilliantly, and winning that match and going on. I believe she ended up winning the Open. You got, come on, talk to me.
Shout out to Coco after all that you went through this week. You won. At the end of the day, you won. Period, point blank. Shout out to the Queen for winning. I don't keep up with tennis like that, but all I can say is through all of what you went through this week, you ended up against all odds winning. So
Yeah.
that's the main thing that we look forward to and we're happy about, and then we celebrate is that you won. So congratulations to you, sister.
Okay. Thank you. Listen, that was quick because I know Had this been football, oh my God, you would have just had been all over that. But I get it. It's not. It's it's not. I admire the way that she spoke up for herself and defended, and the support that the crowd gave her. I very much appreciate that. So we can
Yeah,
move
salute
on.
to her.
Absolutely. Uh, we had a few comments last week from the second part of our etiquette, and we appreciate those comments and that conversation that we had. And we're gonna leave it alone, so we not so we whatever, dude, whatever. It's wonderful that we can agree to disagree and that we have various topics. Hey, Jamal. Jamal is
What up,
on my
Jazz?
other our
What
other
up, Jazz?
Jamal.
What up, brother?
Thank you, Jamal, for
My
being
bro.
here. Yeah.
Salute
So
to you,
it's
brother. Love
absolutely
you,
so.
man.
Listen, that we can agree to disagree. But you know what? This gives us time to talk about our main topics, which are very important. And I'll tell you kind of how I got there. I saw a snippet. Oh, oops, sorry. I saw a snippet on, I believe it's Good Morning America. It's a We Love You Too, of a young man, and I want to tell you where he is. But there's a young man who is the story opened with him working in a body shop, and he's working in the body shop. Young black man. He's working in the body shop, and put his dreams on hold to be a forest ranger because he was caring for his younger brother after the death of their mother. What compounded their story is that their mother had, in fact, left them a home. It needed to have some repairs done to it. And the little bit of savings that they did have, he gave to a contractor who did not finish the work. That left them homeless. But this young man was determined to keep he and his brother together and make sure that he raised his brother. And so he dropped out of school and was not going to finish his education. The young man's name is Jalen Gray, and his mom died, and he quit school. And so it was on CBS News, and so the reporter followed that. A contractor heard about what happened with the previous contractor coming in to repair the home and didn't finish. And that contractor came in and repaired the home so that they could go back into their home and be together and not be homeless. This is part of Steve Hartman's On the Road series. Man wanted to ensure that he provided for he and his brother. On the flip side of that, I ended up with, oh, we got some backlash. On the flip side of that, I ended up listening to and seeing a story about a 45-year-old woman who was caring for both aging parents and how she had had to put her life on hold and trying to care for not one for both parents. I later on had a conversation with a coworker at the school that I work at who was sharing with me that she was raising her two granddaughters. And how she got there was she had adopted a young lady as a child. The young lady had a bit of a 3 or 4 years, got out of prison, was in a car accident, and she died. And my coworker now has custody of her two young daughters. And she's a little bit older than me. And so what she's saying is that I simply want the opportunity to see these young ladies grow up. I want the opportunity to raise them and take care of them and see them as adults. And as we were having this conversation, she was a bit in tears. I think I shared with you that many years ago when I moved to Atlanta, I ended up with custody of my teenage sister. She and my mother had gotten into an altercation about something my sister had done. My mother decided to put her out, did not want me to take her in. We ended up in court, and the court actually awarded me custody of my sister while she was still in high school. But so with all those things, I wanted us to talk about caring for either our younger siblings and our aging parents. And I've had two or three friends in my adulthood now who have had to take in an aging parent and care for them. So just thought that that would be an interesting conversation, as I happen to be, a mom who only has one child, and again going into my 60s. I've often joked with Libby, can you just let me stay in my house? Don't send me to a nursing home, but let me stay in. But that's a very real thing. You are an only child, Jamal. Your mom is a little older than I. I don't know if you guys have had that conversation about mom. What do you want me to do? What happens? Does she come with you and your wife? Do you and your wife go there? I just think it's an interesting conversation because between raising younger siblings or having to care for younger siblings based upon different scenarios that happen in families and our aging parents, it's a very real thing that many of us are facing right now. Should that have gone through this, or what is the conversation that you and your mom are having? Have y'all had the con?
The conversation is just, where um, the expenses are. Yeah, we had the conversations of if something was to happen or whatever, what would go on with her. But as far as if she gets to an elderly age, I don't think we've had that type of conversation.
Okay, because your mom is, without putting out, your mom is how old now?
Should be 70 next year.
Okay, your mid 40s. Um, but and I guess it goes back to some of the other conversations we had. It's a real conversation to have. Just as with this young man raising his sibling, it didn't say, but I believe his mom got sick and she died. And he took on the responsibility, and it didn't appear, it didn't hear anything about any other relatives kind of stepping up or being able. I think when they got homeless, a relative may allow them to come, but a lot of times, there's not the spacing to take in people, and they had a home and they wanted to go back into their home. I know with both of my friends who cared for aging parents, their parents actually had to come into their home. There were other siblings, but they end up being the child who took the parent in and became the main caregiver. And it can and it will change your life. But I'm just curious as if there's any of us who are having those kind of conversations about what does that look like, or how you maneuvered through that, or that responsibility, or would you even accept the responsibility? I know in having conversations with some people who, if there wasn't a good relationship when you were younger, and now you're faced with, now I've got to take care of you as they needed to, as we say, financially, and to know where the resources and how that's going to look. It can take a drain on a family if you don't have the spare bedroom or the extra space. And what does that look like, that you end up turning a room that you didn't have into space for a parent or for siblings? What does that look like? Both my parents are now deceased, so I don't have not had to face that responsibility. But with my two friends who were very close to me, I had to, I knew both parents very well, and understood for many years what they had to go through to do for that. I know in caring for my sister, it meant moving into a bigger apartment, moving near a school she needed to go to try to get her through her last couple of years of high school. And it just changed the dynamic I was in a relationship with someone at the time and he was fine with it, but then that changed as well. And, it's a different thing when you're trying to parent. In my case, my sister was, again, she was a teenager, and that dynamics. So what does that look like? And just from that standpoint, have we had the conversation? As I said, I've had to attempt to have the conversation with Lib, and I've said, hey, just let me stay in my house. And I made sure I've had insurance set up and whatnot. But I think that, at the point right now that I'm still healthy, it's, she hears me and not, because again, Libby's in her early 20s. And so, it seems well, and probably just that general conversation may be a bit overwhelming for her, to the degree that, just recently, as she's of age now, she's now my beneficiary, and she's now, the person I put on in case of emergency. And I've had to say to her, Libby, you're the in case of emergency. So if something happens, they're going to call. Are you prepared to deal with that, or should I continue to leave my best friend on as in case of emergency, and then you just kind of follow through after the fact? I have a living will in place. If I were to be in an accident, and there are three different people that are supposed to make the decision and follow the wishes that I want, to ensure that, I've decided, don't leave me on life support, or don't do this, and, I want to be cremated, and make sure those things are followed through. And I just, are we having those kind of conversations, or is there anyone that can share how they've had to deal with caring for a younger parent or for a sibling from that perspective? What what does that look like? Because it is a lot of responsibility. I can imagine that there's probably been some relationships where that can be a strain, that your parent now has to move in with us as we are maybe trying to live our life, or also, that we hadn't talked about having to take on that responsibility. So just share your thoughts on that.
Um, I think it's a sensitive subject considering when you talk about your in-laws. You don't want to come off, especially I speak from a married perspective. You don't want to come off selfish, yet you don't want to come off with no empathy towards the family.
Good word. That's a good word. Empathy. Yeah.
I think it's also about where you are as a person too, to be honest with yourself. If you truly want to be, if you really want to go through that. But then how do you say the correct things that get through to your spouse without it coming off as it being wrong? It's kind of like a lose-lose situation, if that makes sense. Or you look at it like, oh, you're putting something on hold. You can say on hold, people can look at it from that perspective. What if you put what you did on hold just for somebody else and you don't outlive that person? You know what I'm saying? Like all the dreams and aspirations that you could have, should have, would have
Right.
done, you didn't
Right.
do them, and now they outlive you. You know what I'm saying? And that situation has happened in some scenarios for some people. So it's the touchy slope. And then let me be on the other side of it. You have people that are honest about theirs and can handle that. They can accept that. They can be cool with the person moving in, and life can continue on, and no hiccups or issues or anything like that. You know, um, they can be just as open. So it's you can see both sides of it, and that's what I try and look at, is both sides of it, but also just being honest with myself. Because if anything, or yourself, Biggest thing is not to lie to yourself on what is that you actually and dislike, whether it be a sibling or an aging parent. I've had both. You know what I'm saying, in the household, and
As a
it has
husband,
been,
in your marriage as a
yes,
husband. Yeah, gotcha, gotcha.
yes.
Yeah,
So
okay.
it has been times where it can be stressful, and
Yeah,
then there are times where it can be great. It teaches you a lot about yourself and about family and your quirks and things that you can deal with and things that you can't deal with. So
right.
it all depends on it depends on the person. I just put
Oh,
it that way, just to be on the safe side and be honest about it. Just it really depends how much you really put up with, and then you need those breaks to say enough is enough.
okay. Because I imagine with siblings, perhaps it can look a little different depending on the age. uh, Maybe, because in the case that we're talking about, what I saw, the sibling wasn't. He maybe was 10 or 11, so this is still going to be a bit of a journey because you're talking about someone that's still in elementary school,
Right.
and it's got to get through elementary school, middle school, high school for his brother feels that he's old enough, and so he did
Right.
have to put his dreams on hold. Through the story and his story being aired, someone came through and gave him a scholarship so that he could go back to school. And again, the contractor came in and fixed the home. That's wonderful, but we both know that doesn't happen very often. And
Absolutely.
kudos to someone hearing and stepping in.
Right.
I I recall, even in a conversation when I had my sister was living with me, and she was trying to get her through school. I had to have a conversation with her principal, and I recall the principal, and this has been years ago, saying to me, she says, and I have to laugh because it was difficult, but something that I needed to do. She said, I've had more of an engaging conversation with you as a sister than I have with parents I have here in the school. But I felt such a responsibility to try to do the right thing because in my sister's case, we had two different fathers, and I knew I still had support on my mother's side, and then I knew I had support on my father's side. In fact, the last 2 years of high school, I actually lived with my aunt and uncle, my dad's sister and her husband. So familiar with that taking place. Um, and her husband were both gracious about it. And that's still the place I call home in Indiana, is their home. And based upon how my uncle grew up and how my aunt grew up, that's just the things that we did. And that was fine. But in the case of dealing with, my sister, it was just really sort of just, she's a teenager. She's gone through some things. She's rebellious. There weren't quite 10 years between us. So part of it's like, are you trying to be, for a long time, are you trying to be mom or sister? Where I'm trying to kind of do a little bit of both to help get you through this place that you need to get through from there. And so, that looks different. The relationship I was in, we broke up. It wasn't necessarily because of that, but he was supportive enough. But you can end up having to put literally your life on hold and put it on pause to do this. And because I became a parent at 38, almost 39 years old. When Libby turned 6 months old, I turned 39. So, she may be faced
Ooh.
with that. What?
What?
Congratulations, you played
I
yourself.
just popped you with that. So, it was it is it those type of things that you think about? Stop. It's those type of things that you think about. You don't, but it's real. And then trying to provide them with, I know, here we go, and then trying to provide them with good care. So if you had good parents who sacrificed and did for you, and now here it is your turn to try to repay that. But it can look different because that was parents and that was their responsibility. Some say, but is it your responsibility on the back end to do the same thing? Because at this point, to the video that I saw with the young woman, it was both parents, and she was your age, so she's caring for both parents, and she, you could see the strain in her face through this interview, talking about caring for both of them. Both had different things going on, and it looks different, per se. Why are
It's a
you
good
laughing?
unique word. I like that. That was a good unique word. It
It
looks
different.
if she wasn't on a podcast right now, that word different wouldn't have came out of her mouth. Just know that, y'all.
No, and it just, yeah, because I'm trying to find the right words so it doesn't come out like, oh, what is she saying? I don't know that. I had a conversation with my father, my biological father, before he died. And again, my parents didn't get married. He didn't take care of me, and but my brother, was there caring for our dad because he grew up with him, and he did a wonderful job watching him go through his illness. And he stayed in their home, go through his illness, and then passed. It's about a year or so ago. And I applauded him on the way that he went about that process. Even that in itself. My dad's wife is still living, so they were all, together, but my brother did not live in the home with them. So he's constantly having to get off work, go over, check, make sure things are okay, check on his mom, do those things. And it gets to be where you literally, it's a full time thing, because even when you're raising children traditionally, at some point they get up enough that they can do things for themselves. But at the time that you begin to care for aging parents, they are at times completely dependent on you for everything. And that can take its toll just on the individual, and if there is a spouse. And then, if you're also attempting to do that while you're still raising your own children. So you got your small kids, your parents, or if you're just starting your career and parents get ill, and here we are. If your parents, something happens and you have your younger siblings, and here you are, and now we're off the course of what that looks like. But I think it's a conversation that I just want to make sure we're all having to some degree, and what it looks like, and how you feel about that. As you said, you were in an environment where you were siblings, I guess maybe your siblings, your sister-in-law, brother-in-law, whatever the case may be, and mother-in-law, and what does that look like? And then you have your own mom. And again, like Liv, you guys are only children, so that responsibility, whatever it may look like, will fall on your shoulders. You'll share that with your wife in this case. And again, because you all have known each other for such a long time, it looks different. There's a wonderful relationship there. Libby's at a different point in her life where, God forbid, something were to happen, life on hold. So I've, attempted to talk to her about, hey, here's what I want to have happen. Let me stay in my home, let care come in and take care of me, those things. But then part of the responsibility also is, taking care of myself, so that, I keep my health up as best I can, and those type of things of that nature. But just, you know, it happens more than we know. Have you known someone outside of your personal relationship where they've had to care for aging parents or siblings? And what did that look like?
Dominique. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
He's doing it now with his mom. And shout
Okay.
out to Dominique's mom and everything right now. Um, just pray for her, pray
Okay.
for her recovery. So just leave it at that. But yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it with he came quick off my head. Dennis. Dennis is doing that. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my brother. Dennis. Dennis is out there doing it now, with his mom.
Mm.
Pray for her as well. She's
Okay.
still, you know, having some issue things as well, but getting better. There, I know a couple of people that have had to go through their times and their struggles and putting, I wouldn't say their life on hold, but
But you got to pause for a moment. You have to pause.
yeah, like you feel like you owe it to your parents to do what's right. You know what I'm saying? Um, Honoring your father and your mother. You know what I'm saying? That type of
Yeah.
situation, along with just actually love that you have for your parents. Hopefully that they did do what was right for you,
Right.
um, and vice versa. You know what I'm saying? Even if you can put that difference aside, because there have been some that have had to do it. I respect those that have done that. They are. It takes a lot. It
Yeah.
takes a huge heart deep down to want to do something despite, or in spite of situations that were never talked about or
Right.
never
Never had the
handled
conversation.
properly.
Right. That the
Absolutely.
conversation never came up, and all of a sudden, mm, I'm I'm faced with, but I have to make the decision. I guess to your point, to do, for lack of a better term, to do the right thing. Absolutely,
Right.
to do the right thing.
Right.
I don't know of, um, in all the people that I know, the option was never to put their parent in a nursing home. So that was never a thought. It was that they would come into their home. But again, um, luckily in both the cases, I know they had the space in order to bring the parent into the home. But just like, when me being a parent and saying, I can't do this, got to go home, Libby's got to do homework, got to go get live in bed. The same thing happens when you're caring for an aging parent. If in fact their health is not good, you have some parents that maybe need to move in. Their health is good, but they don't need to be by themselves. But there are certain scenarios when that parent is totally dependent on you. You got to prepare meals, make sure they get bathed, cleaned in bed, all those things as if you were caring for a child. That just even if you can still continue to work and have someone of your career, it still changes the dynamics of your life because you're not free to come and go as you choose. Vacations look
I
different.
say
Time away looks different. From that. You were saying what?
I was saying, even if my mom, for instance, she took care of my grandma. Let me make this clear. My aunt, she was staying at my aunt's house. My aunt was a caregiver. My cousin was there as well. And my mom also ended up helping out a lot once she got there as well before my grandmother passed. And my grandmother passed right before, well, right after I got married, like literally a couple months after I got married. That's
Okay.
why she didn't come to my wedding. So shout out to my granny, but my mom did a lot with my grandmother and putting her life on hold and doing what she felt was right. You know what I'm saying? Lived out, talked with her mom, got to spend that time with her. I got to spend time with my grandmother before she passed. I mean, all the way up until the literal last day. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? I
Right. Right.
I was I was there. You know what I mean? So um, it's something that you just look at it and you just know that you can only imagine how it is on children. Because I
Right.
remember a couple of days, well, a couple weeks after that, my mom ended up going to Alaska. You know what I'm saying? So, journey where your life goes and stuff like that after is it's a surprise. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
never would have thought of seeing my mom going to Alaska or that even being a thought.
Right.
But considering all the stuff that my mom was going through at that time in her life, she needed that. You know what I'm saying? To challenge her and to build that confidence up in herself to know that she can do what she's being put on this earth to do. You know what I'm saying? And my mom has always been a servant, you know what I mean, in a helpful manner. My mom, I mean, you see it when she came to the house the other week, being there at your house. Mom just that's just her
Yeah.
part. That's just her
Yeah.
position. Like
Yeah.
she's been like that since day one. Everybody knows if you've ever been in contact with my mom, my mom is just one of the sweetest people that you could ever meet. So I think it's only my due diligence to do the same. And I know that with her getting up there in age,
Right.
Rami and I, we talked about it. And I'm like, I'm willing, we were willing and still are, you know, if all else fails, you can come live with us, do whatever we need or whatever the case may be. But like you just said, you want to be at your house and do, what's needed and so on and so forth. My mom's in the same position. My mom's in a whole different state. But both my parents are in two
Difference.
different states
Right.
than
Right.
myself.
Right. Right.
So you can only imagine being a child now and vice versa, even being a parent. You're in the same state as, Libby, where I'm not anymore. You know what I'm saying? So everything right now is a phone call if I'm
Right.
not literally around you guys. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
And even
it's different.
yeah. And so even with Lib and like I said, in having the conversation, because I we already know Libby's not going to stay in Atlanta, so it'll be the same thing. It'll be a phone call and visits and things of that nature, and I'm perfectly okay with that. That she has a right, God given right to go live her journey, and I raised her in such a way. So I get that she's not going to to be here. I feel a responsibility to ensure things are in place. So I have the health insurance. I have the disability, the all those little things that you can get from through your insurance to ensure, okay, before you have to move back to Georgia and do whatever, unless I'm absolutely just deathly ill, so to speak. And again, we talk. It's a sensitive conversation. We don't like having these conversations, but we have to. That's why there's different things in place. And as you talk about your mom, if I recall correctly, then her brother got sick and a sibling, your uncle, and I don't know if it
Yep.
was the same sister, but your
Couple
brother
of
was
years.
living with
My brother.
was
Hmm.
yeah,
He
yeah.
ended up moving there for a minute. Uncle Larry went on and transitioned. He went on and passed on. So,
Okay.
you know, it's been a lot. It's been a lot that
Yeah.
has went on, but my mom has been around it and, she'll do whatever is needed. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And,
Yeah.
I
But
just know
even
that for my mom,
yeah.
absolutely, I do whatever it takes to
Yeah.
because of so much she's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a sensitive subject, but everybody needs to have them because I
You
feel
have
like it's needed because you just don't want to be caught with the whiff, or if something happens, what what is your family supposed to do? You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah. And see,
you
I
just
hadn't
never
thought
know when
about
your
it.
checkout time is.
Jesus.
I'm serious. Like you
Okay,
gotta
could
be
you
real.
I
Like
no,
you
but
just don't.
could you say it differently? Hey Barbara Dixon, how are you?
Hey,
So
Miss
glad to
Barbara.
see you. Hey Barbara. I'm just saying, could you have worded it differently? Check out. I'm just
No,
saying, could you pick a softer
the upper room. Is that better? Kick, kick the bucket.
no,
Uh,
stop. Okay, stop.
walk the plank.
Stop. Stop.
Uh, want me to keep going?
Just stop. But this is so no, so hold on. So when we talk about that, because I remember your mom sharing, just popped your behind with the tip of that belt because you didn't stop it. You just, when we talk about it, your uncle was an adult and got ill, and his sisters cared for him. That's a different
Right.
scenario. And
Yep.
I've had friends talk about that as well because I always, and I was having a conversation as you say that, and I always ask, I said, well, did he or she have children? And you get this kind of vague answer or whatever, whatever. But I've
And sh-
seen, I've seen where siblings in later in life have had to take in and care for their adult siblings. Same scenario. And my gosh, what does that look like? As
also,
well.
I was gonna say shout out to my auntie because you know I have a cousin that my mom's sister. My cousin has lupus. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's always had to look out for my cousin Patrice and everything like. And Patrice has always been, you know what I'm saying? And what I mean when I say messed up, I'm saying like physically, body wise, and everything like that. Growing
Health
up,
it's
she's
health
had complications,
challenges.
health issues. There
Health
you go.
challenges.
Yeah, all that. So uh, um, that that and then she had to deal with her sister. I mean, not her sister because my mom is, but her mom, her brother, all of them, were all together around her. You know what I'm saying? For the
Yeah.
most part, and she's helped taking care of those people, and it's just like. I mean, I give shout out to my auntie Renee
Yeah.
for what she's done so that when she came here and I'm looking at her and I'm like, man, now with her walking on a cane and everything, it's like I just didn't.
Eh,
People have to get older. That's
Yeah.
just a part of life. But it's just
Yeah.
like when you see it in
Yeah.
in your OGs and you see certain things and ailments are really starting to happen now in life. It's just you got a different appreciation of life that you hopefully should gear towards patching up a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? And not being like they're
Yeah.
going out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you guys aren't going off on a bad note. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah. And when we talk about caring for it, there's a special place for those people who are genuinely caregivers. It's not an easy role, and it's not something that everyone does well. It's how can you have 7 kids and only one step up? And shout out to that one who steps up and does that. And in the case of your aunt, it sounds like she's had to do that on multiple occasions with several
Yourself.
different family members.
Yourself. You may not give a hug to nobody, but you'll open your doors. I'm just being honest. Like, you ain't trying to hug nobody, but you can come through the door all you want. You can hug that door in and out. You can hug this pillow. You can hug that mattress and make yourself at home. I respect you. I love you for that. I appreciate you for
Yeah.
that. But you ain't
Well,
giving nobody no hug.
no, I'm not. And it's
See, Robbie
no.
said too.
So let me, because I had this conversation. Okay, Rami, we didn't need your amen, but okay, thank you very much. But anywho, so I, you guys know I'm in my second career and somewhat along this conversation, but not. But I work in special education. So my students are, they have their challenges, whether it be behavior or educational, and
Right.
and that's fine. That's where God has led me, all well and fine. And I have one little fellow who's very touchy. He will sometimes sometimes he'll end up in my lap, and sometimes he'll rub my arms, or he'll turn and we hug,
Well,
and
do tell this one.
I
I'm
I
with you
know.
guys. I love to hear this story. Mm, mm.
And
Let him use you.
yeah, that's how he communicates. And when he does it, I have to laugh. And in a conversation, I was having with someone just yesterday. I said, now, I'm be honest with you, this isn't my love language, but this is how this little fella, first, this is how he communicates with me. So it's a rub on the arm. He'll catch me and he'll catch my bracelets and he'll pull a little bit. Stop, Barbara. He'll rub, he'll rub my arms. He'll kind of, he'll kind of rub my leg or something. And then sometimes he'll turn and if he's cold, he'll give me a little hug. And that's his way of communicating. And I have to stop and realize, okay, Miss Collier, that's, because that's who I am at school. That's but in order to care for him and to get through with him, to get through to him, to build a relationship, to get him through his classes and to do that's how we're communicating right now, and that's how I'm caring for him. And I laughed
I
with
could
the
so
person.
say something to that right now, boy. Love you, Lib. Ooh,
Don't okay. Anywho,
I'ma let
he
that.
he's a little tyke, little
Love you,
fella,
Lib.
little fella, little person, and so it's and when he does it, I'm like this. Here he go, but it's how he communicates. So it looks, caregiving looks differently. Yes, Libby has talked about not being hugged and all that, but we talk about caring for younger siblings and aging parents. I just shared that because the caregiving looks different for sometimes for certain things. Whatever, the child is grown now, and we whatever. Anywho, so
Congratulations, you played yourself.
no one played themselves, but anyhow, that's so it does care. So shout out to the caregivers as we're having this conversation, because it's not something that's in everyone's character trait or makeup to do. For those who have sort of been, I don't want to use the word forced, but thrown into it, and have stood up and done what was needed to do. God bless them. I don't know why you laughing, but I'm going to pop you with the belt again.
Oh, nothing, nothing,
I
nothing.
don't know why you're laughing, but anywho, so
Love
so
you,
that
Lib.
yeah, so and I can caregive for you for a couple of days, and then y'all gone. Yeah, so yeah, that's
See you next week
but
too.
I okay, and it. So Barbara says she's played both roles as a caregiver and now being cared for. Is different to be cared for. Ooh, Barbara, thank you for that. Because that's an interesting perspective in having to let people care for you when you've been used to being independent and you being a caregiver and you being the parent. Hadn't considered that.
Absolutely.
Hadn't
Yeah.
considered, yeah, had not considered that perspective at all.
So now you got to look at how you treat people. You know what I'm saying? Like that right
Yeah,
there, what Miss Barber just said, makes you should hopefully make other people thinking about how you treat others. You know what I'm saying? Because
yeah,
when that opportunity presents itself onto you, how are you? You know what I'm saying? How are you going to accept the treatment that you know what I'm saying? Because
yeah,
it's all about how, in a way of karma. You know what I mean? Like you got to think about how you've treated people, and if you treated
yeah,
people good, you will get taken care of good and
yeah,
properly. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
screwed a lot of people over and you've done dirty stuff and you talk crazy to people, and your time do come.
yeah.
So, and Rami constantly makes me check that. She checks me on that so much. Like, look, that's what they say. You know what I'm
Keep
saying? Keep
living.
on living.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm just
yep,
like, I'm one of those. I love, like, I'll even use you, for example. We may argue in our own way, and that's our own version of
right.
how we
Yeah,
conduct
interact.
ourselves. But
Right.
I'll do anything for you to make
Yeah,
sure everything is all right. I
yeah,
always, if y'all seen us, it's not for the faint at heart. But trust me, it's a lot of love and respect to it.
yeah,
Trust me. Like I
yeah,
will never. There's a
yeah,
line you just
yeah,
don't. Nah,
yeah,
you just don't cross. And even
and
at my age, I
yeah,
don't do it.
yeah, and for those, and we'll go back, but for those who didn't catch our initial podcast, the relationship began with the two of us anyway, and everyone else came in. Then your parents came in, then Liv came in, and your wife came in. So it kind of started with us from that perspective. But again, to Barbara's point, where she says it's very hard to be cared for, and Barbara and I used to work together, so we've known each other maybe not quite 20 years, but I'm going to say 18 plus along that line. And she's had, her health challenges, but wonderful spirit, has raised two children who are now adults, is also a grandmother. I hadn't thought about it from the perspective of, because it also has to be in the spirit of which you care for people as well. So are you begrudgingly caring? Or are you doing so in love and understanding that, you know what, I'm faced with, I now need to help take care of whomever, and I'm going to do it with love and compassion. And that piece is huge as well. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, because when folks are doing stuff, but they don't really, really want to do it for you, particularly when you need to be physically cared for. It's like, if you've got to fix a plate for me, if you've got to,
Ooh, Father. Somebody, ooh. When it come to you, boy, and go, ooh, man. It gonna need to pass a secret service test with you, background 19 times. Uh, it's go, boy, the criteria for you, Libby gonna be, boy, I pray for my baby. Ooh, I pray for my baby.
I,
That child.
anywho, so but it's a conversation we have to have. Things happen. As we're having, she said, cut up wings. What does she mean, cut up wings?
That's what you gonna
Yes,
want.
they're gonna have to cut up my wings. Absolutely. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So that will need to go on the criteria as y'all interviewing people, that she likes her wings cut up. Don't just hand her a chicken wing. You'll need to cut the wing up. Thank you very much. So y'all know, as y'all are interviewing, that's what, yes, my pizza.
Man, please.
Absolutely.
Oh
Absolutely. Give me a
no.
napkin.
What?
Thank you. Do not just be trying to feed me without a napkin and some utensils. Not
Ooh, this lady
happening.
though. This lady don't never smile at you. Y'all ain't gonna never. Ooh, man. Ooh, I pray for that person. Them caregivers, boy. You better. Hey, Miss Barber, you better tell her. She better start changing herself. Better get her life together now. Better get. You got time. You got time.
Well, okay, so maybe I'll just start interviewing my own people, and then I'll
No,
just do
don't
it
you
that way.
interview me, because I ain't
I,
about to.
I'm not.
No, 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 no.
Nope, you were not on the list anyway. So thank you. So there you
Good.
go. And now that you put that out there,
Yeah, I can't pass drug test. Something, make just I failed something. It don't matter. Criteria, whatever it is. I wouldn't
okay,
make it. Oh well. Oops.
okay. Well, I'll
Physical
start.
ailment. My back.
I'll start interviewing my own caregivers. But it's important to have, and for people to respect, where you are, because again, like she said, it's hard being cared for, and have, as people do that, in love and respect who you were, because I would imagine Barbara said, I'm gonna be fine because I gotta be. Thank you, Barbara. She see past all that. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Miss Barbara. Yeah. Never mind. um,
Anyway, she's known me about as long as you have. Thank you very much. So we've had some conversations. Trust me.
do she
So
know
yeah,
you know you? There's a difference in working with you and knowing you. There's a difference.
there is.
Big difference.
But we've had long conversations. We are sister friends. We are sister friends. Thank you, Jamal. Okay. So I obviously you won't be on that list. That's fine.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
But I hope you don't bump your head nowhere and you need me to come over there and fix a leg
I'm
because it can go
straight.
both ways
I'm.
now. It can go
You
both
right.
ways.
You right. You
It
right.
can go
You right.
both ways. So why you
Bless your
playing?
heart, Miss Barbara. Bless your heart. Boy, you got to be a real one. If you can sit up here with Kimberly, boy, you got to be a
Okay.
real one.
You gonna be where next week?
Your house.
You why you talk
Your
about me?
house, Auntie.
Uh-huh.
With the door wide open, waiting on me.
No. Um, but interesting, but it's why we and it's good we can joke through it because again, people have we got our personalities and whatnot. And so what should happen, hey Sean, how are
What
you?
up, Sean? What up, big
What
bro?
should happen is that the case where you are a caregiver or being cared for, it should always happen with dignity. I think that's the word. You use empathy earlier, but dignity. Empathy and dignity are the utmost. And I think that those two things have to be, and compassion when we're talking about caring for younger siblings and caring for aging parents, or when we're caring for anyone,
Absolutely.
there's a level of dignity and empathy. Think about how the little brother feels, where the big brother has put his life on hold. Does he somehow feel, you would, I would hope that there's a level of love that that child doesn't feel like he's, oh my God, am I really holding my brother back?
How old is he?
That he wasn't any more than 10 or 11. He's not even a teenager
Oh man,
himself.
that boy don't. He ain't worried about he ain't worried about his brother like that. That boy, he
Jamal,
playing and having his fun,
Jamal.
having his way. He ain't worried about that. He
Okay,
love him though, but he like man, he ain't worried about no man dreams and all. He ain't caring about that. Let's be real. That man ain't caring about no dream.
okay.
Stop
I'm gonna
lying to
need you.
these people out here.
I'm gonna need you
You
to
folk,
start.
don't be lying with it. No, I just don't want you to be saying that to people. Ooh, I wonder if he's thinking. No, he ain't thinking that. Ain't no boy
Jam-
thinking about no other man's dreams, and I hope I'm wondering if I'm holding him back from his dreams and his
Jamal,
aspirations. No, he
Jamal,
ain't worried.
Jamal. I'm gonna need you to start looking at the little snippets when I send them to you, because they talk about it in the interview.
You gotta fix the story. It's just like when you make these movies out here. You know they just lied about what's the boy's name? The the football kid, Michael Orr. They lied about his whole story, the blind side. That was a whole lie. So I mean, hey, you know what I mean? You can fix the story up and be, dramatized and all that. It's all good. You gotta
Okay,
sell stuff.
so
Little boy ain't thinking about
I,
his big
I've
brother's
heard
dreams.
you don't know that in this case.
That
Okay,
boy ain't thinking about
okay,
no dream. He cool with him. Hey, love you, big bro. Thank you. But he ain't like, oh, let me see if I make this move. I'm wondering if this will mess up, his next move 5 years down. He ain't worried about that. He ain't care. That ain't even a thought.
okay. Anywho, I heard about the blind side. So they made a whole movie that was a lie and didn't think they were gonna get caught.
Hey
That's
man,
a different.
dramatize the
That's
story, man. Got over on the black man again. Look at us. Hey, never mind. I almost went there. I almost went there. But hey, man.
Did he ever live with the people?
I
Did
don't
he
know.
actually live with
I
them?
don't know what's real. I don't know what's real and what ain't. I don't know. I'm serious. I really don't know.
Okay. All right.
He
So
ain't getting
listen.
paid from it though. They got paid off the like. I'm getting paid off the likeness of you. How you feel, and you didn't get nothing out of it. I'm paid off you. I ain't even kick you down nothing. We left you out of the whole ordeal. You feel some type of way. Just saying. Tell me I'm wrong, people.
And why is this just now coming out?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hey,
Anywho, for those of you
man,
who are
might be rough times, man. I don't know the
that
man's situation.
that'll make a difference too how the story played out. If you, but let's we chasing that big bunny rabbit. But I heard some of that, and it's unfortunate that it's come out that way. For those of you who
Yep.
had joined us, we were talking about caring for younger siblings and our aging parents, and we were sharing, if in fact you've had that conversation with your children, with your spouse, with your parents. How does that look? Are you prepared? Do you have the space? How would you do that? What would you do differently? Do you do it graciously? Is there an alternative? Is the answer hell no? Y'all can't come up in here. We're not doing that. You didn't do that for me.
Ooh.
And to be honest, it might. There are some scenarios where it might look that way, where it's like, no, that's y'all. You're gonna have to go someplace else. You know, Boo
Ah,
Boo.
man.
Why does it fall on one particular
Who?
sibling and not all of them? Uh, what?
Who is Boo Boo Joe?
Anyhow,
So nobody else called Boo Boo Joe?
there's somebody out there called Boo Boo Jones.
Oh man, Boo
there's
Boo
there's someone out
Jones.
there called Boo Boo Jones.
Shout
But
out to Boo Boo Jones.
yep. So how does that look? And those we love having these type of conversations because we have to have them. We have to have them. As I shared earlier, my coworker who is now caring for two young grandchildren after the death of her daughter, who spent time in prison, was out, and 4 months later was killed in a car accident. And she says, all I want to do is see these babies grown. But I'm 60 and she's several years older than I am. So you're talking about raising, I think she told me they were little girls she's having to raise and see them through. That's, that's a, for if, when you're talking about being in, she's a cafeteria monitor, when you're talking about being in your in your golden years where you're trying to maybe live your best life on that end in retirement, and now
What up, little
that
sis?
changes, and
That's
so
Shonda.
hey, Shonda, thank you guys, thank you for joining us. How does that look? To raise, and she said, and all I wanted, she said, I asked God every night to let me
Hey,
see them.
my sister right here. My sister Shonda takes care of her grandmother. You know what I'm saying? Her grandmother's, from the BC area,
Jamal,
era.
be
So
Jam, what era is that, Jamal?
when they was making them scripts and
Can you just say
all
her?
the
Can you say her grandmother's elderly? Say
she's up there.
okay,
She's she's the letter E in elderly. Like,
okay. Go ahead,
am I
Jamal.
right? But anyway, Shonda know what I'm talking about. But Shonda,
Okay,
like, shout out to Shonda. That's what she's doing right now. She's taking care. She's a caregiver for her grandmother. You know what I'm saying? And
okay.
to put, like you said, to put your look at her. You see it without look at that. Look at her age.
Oh wow,
Uh huh.
wow. Who said tablets? Sean.
See y'all. I didn't just make that up. I didn't make that up.
Okay,
Did they have
elderly.
did
Okay,
they have social security numbers back then? Like when did social security numbers get
I think they
invented?
started coming out in the 40s, 30s, and 40s. So
Dang,
reasonably
she don't even
speaking,
have one.
Jamal, reasonably speaking, she will have a social security number.
Was
Go
hers
on with your
too?
Jamal.
All right. So, shout out to Shonda though. That's what I'm saying. And to know that, like, she's doing hers and putting her stuff on hold, her life on hold, to take care of her grandmother and stuff like that. I think that's dope. I think that's a blessing on the serious note, to do stuff like that. That's just dope to me. So, shout out to the people that do that. I know Shonda's one of them. Rami would definitely be number two on that list as well. You know what I mean? My mom has done it. You know what I mean? So shout out to all the people that do that. And, even Miss Barber, that's in here. Shout
Yeah,
out to her. I
yeah,
just it's dope. Salute
yeah.
to all those people.
Who's been on both ends to be the caregiver and now to be cared for, and that's interesting because I think Shonda's, I believe, younger, certainly younger than me. So she's paused to care for not parent, but grandparent, who I believe raised her, I believe, in a previous conversation we've
Yep.
had. And that's huge. Not my parent, but my grandparent.
Right.
And so at 101, I imagine she's probably totally dependent on her. That, again, that looks different. And Shonda's a young woman. That looks different. Yeah. She said, I went from being an early childhood caregiver to taking care of our grandmother. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
That's
that,
that's a major step. It's just a big. You have to have a huge heart when you can welcome people into your home with open arms and also have that type of mindset that is fine with people being in your home, being in your space. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people don't like that. Just being honest. Like my parents brought me up in that avenue of when people fall on hard times and stuff like that, they open their doors up and they showed me that way as well. Gave people the opportunity to come on, do what's needed to get themselves onto whatever their next portion of their journey is. So I just feel like when you look at stuff like that, I think that's just it's commendable. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Because everybody don't have. And I'm honest with myself. Do I have it at times? Absolutely, but I ain't got it all the time. That's just honest. I know myself, and I'm honest with myself. So it's not like, oh well, he don't want to do it. He don't never want to do it. That's not the case at all. I'm just honest with myself and knowing that there are times when times do get to a point where you just want to be like, "Hey, baby, let's go," and we can just go. You know what I'm saying? No type of responsibilities like that at all. But then you have to also think with the other side of your heart too and be like, is this the right thing to do?
Right.
So, you know, it's there's a lot that goes into stuff like that. Trust me.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Wow. And that's interesting. As you say that, I have another friend I used to work with at Home Depot who lived here in Atlanta. We worked together, and I spoke with her aunt a couple of months ago, and she actually sold her home here in Atlanta to move back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to care for her grandmother, not her mother, but her grandmother. I don't know why her mom was not in the position to do so, but she was not married, didn't have children, and she made that sacrifice and she moved back home. So she left the state. She was here, um, and she left to move back home to care for her grandmother, and
Yeah.
that's where she is. And as we have this conversation, I need to reach out to her and just kind of check on her and see how she's doing again. But that's an interesting conversation because you're in the middle of your career, your life, particularly if you were single and never had, because it looks different if you were single and you didn't have children per se, and you kind of settled in how you live your life, and now you've got to flip it. I'm sure in the case of one of my friends, when she took her mother in, her son was still young, so she's a married. She's got her marriage to tend to. Her son was still in school, still at home, and then she's caring for her mom as well, and that looks different. With the other, then it's a matter of, okay, then I got to make time for the siblings who want to come in and visit, and what does that look like, and all those that. And someone said, so Sean saying, how do you help family that needs help, but you're not ready to admit help is needed? Are they ready to accept help?
I think how you can do that is number one, have an uncomfortable conversation.
Keyword, sometimes it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like you have to have those. But then you also got to remember too, some people are too prideful to give out or give or ask for help. So in some people's cases, they just don't want to admit to that. Now, you do have some people that are honest with themselves and it's like, hey, they need to do what's needed and get that help. And it's a beautiful thing and then life goes on. But some people, you just have to pray and just wish them the best and leave it alone. Because if
Well,
not, you're going to stress yourself out.
so let me say this, because when you use the word pride, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I recall your dad saying I was very prideful as I was raised and live care of themselves, raise their families, always been very independent, done what's needed to do, and it's hard. As Barbara mentioned earlier, it's hard to then sit and say, I need help, because perhaps in let's look in their viewpoint, it's saying somehow they failed. So it's not just a matter of I'm so proud I don't need anyone. It's a different dynamic if you've always been where you 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 got out of something and you did all those things, and now I'm at a position where I need help. It looks a little different for them. It's not
Isn't
pride
the
and
word say
addiction.
pride comes before the fall?
It does.
So
But
this
I'm
is
asked
something that, oh yeah, no, go on. Go on. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to dispute that at all. You're absolutely correct. I'm suggesting to you that there are different levels of pride. Um,
Absolutely.
and so, in the case that Sean may be talking about, it could be a person that just because they have always been able to do for themselves, in their mindset, it's a failure. And I think what he wants, without reading too much in that, is how do I get them to understand it's not a failure on your part. It's that time for you to let someone come in and help, and allow me to do that and continue to to maintain your dignity and respect. That's all I'm saying.
On top of that, is doing when you have the uncomfortable conversation, we are always wanting the conversation to go in a positive way. But
Right.
you also have to be honest and logical about stuff. What if things, because this is life. If life went every if life went the way that we wanted, everybody would be happy. This wouldn't even be a conversation.
Correct.
But
Correct.
we have
Correct.
stumbling blocks, lessons, things that we have to learn within this thing called life. I feel like within life, certain things are also your teacher in knowing what to do and how to handle certain things. I planted that seed, giving that information. Now, what they choose to do with it is on them. We always say that as people, but do we really mean that in every aspect? I.e., for this example, using it for this. What if they're too prideful and not wanting that help? Then what are we supposed to do? If you've prayed about it, you've asked and done what we think is right in the situation and scenario, I feel, and I could be wrong, and there are other ways that you can look at it. I would have to use the Father and just say, you know what? Maybe this is something that I need to step away on because all it's doing is bringing me the stress, the strife, the heartache, the so on and so forth. Because I have seen those type of situations happen and I've had to look at it in a different aspect. You know what I'm saying? So to a lot of people, they have to understand it for themselves. That's their life. That's what is my struggle. My struggle is it not caring? Is it careless? You know what I'm saying? Than
Mm-hmm.
what I was supposed to? Because in actuality, I care so much that I'm speaking on it and I'm wanting this and wanting the best outcome. But the best outcome is not always going to be the answer to everything. So how do I pivot from if they don't accept it in the way that I was giving it to them, with love, with honesty, with care, with compassion, with thought. You know what I'm saying? Not to even go down that path. You can check all that and still in their eyes because they're too prideful in that level, then it come off wrong. It comes off disrespectful. It comes off because now they feel like they're insecure about their situation. You know what I'm saying? So just looking at it from both sides. You planted the
So,
seed.
yeah, let me read what Shauna. She said, honestly, if it wasn't for y'all being like that with me, I wouldn't have learned the skill to be able to do it for myself. And so that's important because you talked about, yeah, we have to be examples. Live, so, along the same line, Liv has said, Mom, I'm so proud of you letting Rami and Jamal come because she knows me. And she said, I think it'd be good for you as well. I'm empty nesting now. And that looks, it looks different for me on this end of it because, I very much love my child and I finally kind of uh, have been able to sit back and get my house sort of. But in the same token, that time and that space as well with you guys being here is good as well because then it takes away from because it is quiet from that perspective. And when you called and said, hey, we got a shift in this and whatever, could you know what, and it was like, okay, from that. But so Lib has stopped and said to me because she knows her mommy, and she's like, you know what, she's mom, should that be good for you, and that looks good, and with all of that dynamic that went on, that's how this sort of came out. So it's good because we get to interact and whatnot and those type of things, because otherwise I would, because at this point I'm even like, I'm about to go find me a little dog somewhere because the space is so quiet as I now create this piece of my life where my only child is an adult. I don't have a significant other. I don't even, we talked about that last week. We ain't gonna go there, but it is what it is for my life, and that's
She didn't
okay.
she didn't read his mind. Carry on.
So it looks different for everyone. There's different pieces of it from that. I hadn't thought about it as caregiving, as you said earlier. So thank you for that. But again, never knowing how that might reflect back or what, how that, however that might go, it's like, okay, well, you know, they can also give back because you did this and vice versa. It all works its way around. But to Shauna's point, unless you set the example or you go the extra mile or whatever that might look like, you have no idea why you're doing something or how it may be preparing you to do something else. And as you put, because life is not fairy tale perfect, at some point the discussion we're having here, we've either done it. Like I said, I've had the legal care of a sibling. I'm going to end up being an aging parent. You're going to care for an aging parent. You're going to care for someone. You may have to give up your time and space to go care for someone. Shout out to Ashana who can leave and go care for grandmother. The other people I mentioned, husband and wives who can let in laws come in and be perfectly okay with that. In both of the scenarios I mentioned, both of my friends were married and their husbands were perfectly okay with the in law coming in to their space. They had the space, but that changes the dynamic of your household and all of that. But it's the reality of it's real, and I love that when we can try to have these real conversations about what does that look like. we're talking a lot about aging parents, but I'm sure there's some of us who have had to care for siblings, or you were cared for by an older sibling. My father talks about how when he was born, my grandmother was 44 years old, and my grandmother sort of asked my aunt, his older sister, to step in, and that's who helped him get through school and took care of him. Because she was, by the time he started to get in his teens, she's older. It's a different day and time, and those type of things. So there are those of us who have been cared for by our siblings. What did that look like? And when you hear somebody call somebody, I heard someone say "mama" one time, but he said, "But actually, she my sister, but she took us in, she cared for us, so she mama and sister." It's like, wow, I wouldn't have known that. And how did that look? How does that look to the brother-in-laws in the space who do stuff like that? I have a dear friend she's the only sister that got married, and she had other sisters that, in this time and space, their house is the house where all the sisters have come. And in fact, a sister died in their home that he loved dearly. And she said, my husband grieved the loss of my sister because he was that kind of brother in law. We hear so much crazy stuff. We don't talk about these pieces in our family and society, those type of things. But as we keep saying, we got to have these kind of conversations. We have to.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
feel
we
like
got to.
also you look at, and I'll use for example myself, having my brother-in-law come and stay with us, and it went from brother-in-law to girlfriend to her children. You know what I'm saying? And it went from hold on, man, to now they family. You know what I'm saying? Like your dynamic changes, your heart changes, you start accepting and start looking at people's situations. Do you want them to be better? Absolutely. Love should, and when we say love is unconditional, do you truly mean that? Because when you get tested in a relationship, family relationship, and it doesn't go the way that it was supposed to go, how are you supposed to act or react in a situation? And I've been through that situation and scenario where, and we've already talked about it, my brother and I, so we're more than good now. But we had a scenario and I was rightfully pissed off. You know what I'm saying? And once we had the conversation, he understood where I was coming from, as well as I understood where he was coming from. And at the time when everything went down, whether right or wrong, it's still at the end of the day, how did I handle myself in the
Right,
situation?
right,
And that's something that I try and pay attention to more than ever now versus how people treat me. How did I handle myself?
right. How did I
How can I
handle
change
myself?
this? Yeah. How can I change the
Absolutely.
scenario and situation to be better than what it actually is to them? You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
whether they apologize to me or not, or whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, my days are numbered. Whether it be tomorrow, my next breath, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line, we
Right.
never know when it's our time. So my thing is always correcting wrongs and being better than I was yesterday. So knowing deep down, I want to be like, nah, oh me, you crazy for even stepping to me and doing that. Never again. It will never happen again that way. Now my mindset changes because love, truly understanding that word love, I think a lot of people use that word love and then don't think about the emotional portion of love. Something don't go your way. Oh man, I ain't dealing with them no more. I ain't trying to do this. And not understanding that certain things happen in people's lives, right or wrong, they happen.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that actual person? And is it truly worth it?
Yeah.
There's levels to those things. So, I just feel like a lot of people just look at it, and to me it's all about how you personally feel about whomever and whatever the situation is. I could care less about how people look at me and what they would have did if they was in this situation. It don't matter what they would have done. It's about how I handle it, how it looks
Right.
to my wife, and how things look to her. As
Right.
far as she's cool with it, I could care less
Yeah.
what anybody thinks outside of my
Yeah.
household, or our situation, our marriage, because your opinion means absolutely nothing. So it is what it is. You can tell me, you can bring up some thoughts, but ultimately, how you feel, babe, and vice
Yeah.
versa. She gonna tell me the same thing. So it's all about just understanding and growth. Can
Yeah.
you pivot from when stuff is not going your way? Now you get this situation. You know what I'm saying? Yes, your house may not have been used. Our last house, I use for example, all the space that we've ever had. The space was needed for that situation in that journey in our life.
Mm.
Did
Mm.
we look at it from the perspective of, man, we could have did this and I could have did that? Yeah, we could have, used and said those types of things. What the Father puts in our lives and puts on us, he's just trying to see if you can handle it for the path that's,
Yeah.
the journey
Yeah.
that you're about to go on and be
Yeah.
prepared for. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
having that space and doing all that, it's cool. It was beautiful. Enjoyed it, but that was a good portion of journey in our lives where we learned that, hey, and yes, we had 11 people live in the house comfortably. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, the house was big enough for 11 people comfortably. So it's like, you know, to be thankful of just the space alone. I'm happy to even say that we had that for them to be in there, for them to be taken care of, and to be, shown love, and you know, look at the relationships that came out of it. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're better now. The children we love and adore them. They're part of the family now, forever, for life. So,
Right.
you
Right.
know, that's the
Mm.
things that I look for. You can love a house, you can love a car and everything like that, but what about those memories? What about those people that you made those memories with? I think that should count for something. And that's what it's about with me. It's making the
Yeah.
memories that I have. Each and every time you open your doors for us. I appreciate having those opportunities to converse and talk with you, and to get them dirty looks that you give me, and to tell me something crazy and outlandish. And I, at the end of the day, to know that within that time, Libby's gonna come through and see us and everything. And
Yeah.
I look at the opportunity of having those memories, and my wife is there with all of this around, and my mom was there the last time.
Yeah.
Like all that
Yeah.
stuff, I
Yeah.
cherish more than I
Yeah.
look. Man,
Yeah.
remember that house I had, and all that material stuff. It's like I'm thankful, I'm blessed. When things come up in your life, you just learn to accept the punches, move on, keep on. But for me, it's my pride is so down in a lot of aspects, because hey man, it's all about growth. It's about maturity. You know what I'm saying? Being uncomfortable is the cause of growth. So anytime you're uncomfortable about situations, it's something that you need to think about to grow on. That's something to think about.
Absolutely. So listen, for those of you who have shared with us, Sean, pray on that situation. If you need to talk about it, reach out to me. Happy to have a one-on-one because it sounds like it's something that's near and dear to your heart, whatever that is. Uh, to Shauna, who's caring for her grandmother and who says that had you guys not give the level of love and support that you had, that you could do that to care for your grandmother and put things on pause for that. I appreciate that. For any of you, Barbara, thank you for coming on and your honesty about being a caregiver and now love you for your transparency in that. Appreciate you guys letting us have this conversation. Again, when we started out, there's things that we joke about, but then we just agreed about let's have some conversation and talk about some things. And as I go through the week and things come up, I just felt this was a conversation worth having. I believe in having those tough conversations, having those uncomfortable conversations that are not popular or sexy, but we have to have them. Life is real,
Have
and when
to.
we have them, then we can know maybe what we should or should not do, or how or what we need to do. And
Yep.
it could be as minimal of, what, I'm gonna call and talk to Dr. Kim about this, just to get a little feedback, just to have somebody to talk to, and then okay, then I can deal with it. So if that even came out of that, the email address is there, get the bell 23 at gmail.com. I'm happy to have those kind of conversation. I shared with you guys some of who am in the backdrop anyway, from that, neither here nor there, but I have the capabilities to have that conversation with you, and happy to do so. Blessings to all of you for sharing and for being in that place for us having this conversation. It's something that we may revisit another time because it's important. Because there's another piece that I shared earlier about the fact that I have a living will in place and what's supposed to happen. And I did so several years ago and had that conversation with those three individuals. And as someone who is also as a chaplain in education in my other parts of my life, those are very important things that is needed to do so that you can be cared for as you want. You can be respected. There's a level of empathy. So if someone has to come in, they can respect and know what you wanted. Because while Jamal gave the scripture, it's absolutely pride can stand in the way. I can understand that the pride that many people have had for how they have conducted themselves, and they just simply want to be respected in that manner. And because they need help, does not mean that it should not be done with dignity. And I think that's huge. It's a lost word in our society, with dignity and respect. And so, thank you for that. We guys, as always, we appreciate you being with us on Saturday evening. You could have been someplace else. So we thank you for being with us. Again, reach out and subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our Facebook and Instagram pages. That gives us an opportunity to grow our audience and be able to do some other things, and set some goals that we have in place. Again, you can mail me a belt. You can reach out by email. We thank you so much, and we will see you again next Saturday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. By that time,
We
Jamal and I
appreciate y'all.
we would have gotten on each other's nerves already, but y'all will get to see that interaction and how that goes. But again, thank you, love you. Talk to you this week, nephew. Peace out. Love you
Love
guys.
you.
Thank you so much. Bye.